guess we can just talk about, how did everybody get started with creating community? Leah, do you want to start it off?
Absolutely. So thank you for having us. We're excited.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity just to talk about something I think is really important to all of us. So about 4 years ago, I moved back to the Green Strand. I'd been living in the mountains of Virginia. And when I was living in the mountains of Virginia, I was consistently sitting in women's circles. And it was something that was new and it was introduced to me. And without sounding cliche, it literally like changed my life. I had this like moment where I was like sitting with women that I'd never met. I just felt so safe and held. And I knew I wanted to tell more people about it. And so when I moved back here to the Green Strand, I started looking for opportunities to sit in circle, and I really just wasn't finding a lot. And I'm one of those people where it's like, if you build it, they will come. And so sometimes if something doesn't exist, I'll just birth it and see what happens. And so that's what I did in I think May of 2019. I held my first women's circle, and then through that, I started really getting to know women in the area. And then when COVID hit, we weren't really allowed to be in person in community, and so I started a Facebook group, and it kind of grew there. And it's just evolved over time, and I absolutely love it. And I find community to be just the deepest medicine that impacts us in so many ways. But yeah, that's what
Awesome.
me and community and how I got started.
Awesome. Awesome. That is so cool. Um, yeah, I don't think I have any follow-up questions right now. What about with the guys group? How did that come about?
I'll start. I've been working with men in recovery for the last 20 years, and I've done a lot of men's groups and a lot of bringing different types of people together just at my home. And through seeing Leah prosper so well with bringing community together, I knew, and me and Leah had talked about it in the past, and me and some other people had talked about it in the circle. And when it happened, it kind of made itself. I had gone through a lot of suffering 8 years ago and had really grown spiritually back to who I was always supposed to be. And a men's circle was the exact seed of that, or the exact growth of that. It was something that had to be. It was just not just that the community needed it, it was something I needed.
Yeah.
To get through a lot of the stuff that happened in my past and a lot of the ways that I was interacting with my wife and my daughters. I needed more men on a deeper level, and it just couldn't be one type of community. It had to be everybody. It couldn't just be a recovery community or a church community or just the men that I play basketball with or something along those lines. Everybody, and I knew it had to be everybody. That's what I knew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. It's nothing like all of life's manure to add the fertilizer to really get the things growing in our lives and transform us into who we're meant to be. It sucks when you're in the midst of all the turmoil and all the BS, but once you get through that part, there's that spring growth and just evolving into something greater than was before.
No mud, no lotus.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Sure. Awesome. Now, Chris, were you part of starting the group or are you just, helping out with it or?
Yeah, my name's Chris Novosel, and mine's similar, to where about 6 years ago, it started with that soil work we were talking about. Really, started drumming some stuff up, some things in the past where I was digging deep personally, and as I started to try to recognize my purpose, my passions, all these things were coming up. I was, facing a lot of just things straight in the mirror and really just addressing and trying to at least bring it up and get past it. And through that, just continue to have a passion, listening to podcasts, and just continuing to want to dig deeper and do the work that really generated. So it's kind of cool when you hear Hance's story too. I feel like we're all on our own journey, but then how our paths all crossed was just pretty amazing. So, and it really, I've been telling my wife who is involved with doing circles with Leah, something that I've been wanting to do the men's work, really understanding and feeling the calling of men's work, because it's something more and more that's coming up. I think there's a lot more popping up, which is great, but we really need it at a very high level, because experience what we have, just the ability to get men in a group, it's very hard to describe. You know, when you have I've got a supportive partner at home, my wife, it's great. I can share something with her and she's supportive, but there's just something to be said when you're able to have men that kind of can stand in empathy of truly, being a man, being able to share that with each other. And we all have our own journeys. It's just become something powerful. So
Absolutely.
Leah was a connector in that. So that was definitely cool.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I hear that like, and anytime I go to a spiritual group, I automatically expect it's going to be like 80% women and then like a few men. Have you seen since the group started that there's more and more men coming, the numbers are going up? That's
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Even last night when I first got there, there was 3 guys. And then by the time it actually started, there was 15 guys at 30 women. And it was like, wow, we really are. And most of the men that were there last night were part of the Reverence circle. And me and Chris were both founding members. We actually started it with a Zoom call. And by the end of the Zoom call, we had our first meeting and I had 20 people invited. And
Wow.
I think our first meeting was a week later or so. And then of course, with the Facebook group and us reaching out to more friends after it became comfortable for the first 20, new people started coming and it just grew on its own. And sometimes our meetings are only 10 people and sometimes they're 30 people, but we touch different people each time. And that's what keeps us moving, is the fact that more and more people are becoming involved. Even if they don't continue to come, they're still staying in touch through the Facebook group. There's some people are moving away and trying to start their own groups. So it's really neat watching it grow and just, watching it organically grow, watching it grow on its own. And that's what we're really all about, is spreading community and spreading the love.
We were talking earlier about the ripple effect. So I always say, like, I feel like when someone comes and sits in a circle, something in them shifts, even if it's something small, even if you only go to one circle, something shifts and you carry whatever shifted with you back home. So then something is going to then impact your partner or your children or your coworkers. And with circles here in the area of the Grand Strand, what I've noticed has happened is, someone will come to a circle. It's always that first circle that's kind of hard to get people to, because we have this resistance a little bit to go into spaces and be vulnerable, right? But really, we're not creating anything new. We're reclaiming a very ancient way of communicating. I mean, thousands of years ago, people were sitting in circle talking in that way around a fire about the ways the community survive and thrive, right? So we're just kind of bringing that back. But what will happen is someone will come and sit in circle and be impacted, and then next time they'll bring a friend. And then next time they'll tell a friend and bring a friend. And so it has been really beautiful to see. And now there's even other circles and community gatherings that are happening in the area. And it's been really like pretty quick, I would say, with the ripple effect here. And so it's really beautiful because I think it's a medicine that maybe people didn't know they needed. And then once they experience it, they're like, oh, like, yes. Like I always like to say, circles like a collective exhale. It's that moment where you're just like, oh, okay, this is what I feel like, right? To be human and see other humans in all that we are and feel safe doing so.
Absolutely. I felt like definitely coming out of a pandemic, let alone the things that led up in my personal life to the pandemic, I was definitely like, oh my God, where's my people? Like, seriously. I moved like once every year for 3 years, had a handful of people die from like either cancer or suicide, lost a job, lost my dad, and it's just like when you relocate, it's going to take a little bit to develop your tribe, to meet your people, to connect with people on a deep level. I mean, it's nice to have this surface level where like, oh, cool, like we like the same things, we all go to sound healing and all that. But like, what's even better than that is, connecting with genuine, authentic connections. Excuse my cat. And just having those people that will listen, practice active listening, who aren't just waiting for their turn to talk, who are living the truths that we're talking about. Like I'm in HR by day right now, but you know, I had a spiritual business before I moved, and um, you know, it's hard to live the truths, you know, if you grew up with intense programming and you know, just being in our culture where, you know, there's a lot of toxic things in our culture. But to find these wonderful groups here that y'all created and seeing the spiritual growth that people are having, and seeing the numbers grow more than just the growth inside people, and the realizations that people are having, and the breakthroughs in their careers and their relationships. But to see the groups are growing and they're thriving, I mean, that's pretty awesome for this area. You know, you guys are doing some great work here. So it's awesome. um, I guess one of the questions that I had proposed that we kind of look at, you know, leading up to this is what creates community? You know, what is that to you? So if anyone wants to chime in, I will.
You want to start?
Yeah, you know, I would just say, really, we got to start with ourselves, and we're all obviously trying to reach whatever it is, reach our highest self, reach our highest goals. But I think just trying to show up authentically, and then really just bringing that energy into your spaces and just living that. I mean, when you start doing this inner work and you get out and you see people at work, see people at the store, you know, you go out and we have to learn to obviously get through our stuff. But as we go out into our community every day, and some of us don't ever look into the eye of other people that we're walking by. We're so much in our phones, we're so much in the zone of what's going on in the world outside of us. And I think if we want to really start to progress in a really powerful way, we have to start just really connecting deeper with our neighbor, with people that live in our areas. You know, I've just started getting to know your farmer. That's one thing I've been doing. Won't get too deep into that. I'm passionate with it, but get to know your farmers, buy your meat and things like produce that you can from your farmers, and conversations that you can have with those people that are living right there. It's so beautiful. So there's so many different ways that you can create it. Just start with, you know, obviously trying to become your best self, but look at what you're doing in your area that you're at. Just try to connect with people. Sometimes it's not easy. I think just really wanting to live
I'm sorry, the sound went out towards the end of your statement. What did you say towards the end?
just yeah, just pretty much, you know, wanting to really show up authentically and bring others along with you is really the key into that.
Yeah.
I think we all just, if we get outside of just some of the material things or some of the things that we recognize that are holding us back, and we just look at our neighbors and try to connect deeper, I think we'll see a much more beautiful way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was kind of aiming at virtues. Like when I walk through life with tolerance, understanding, unconditional love, something changes inside of me as I'm living by virtues to which I want to share and I want to understand what's going on with the people next to me. And when you actually listen with an open ear from a loving place, people are drawn to that. And when people are drawn, you don't want to be necessarily a leader or a ruler, but you want to share. And the more you share, the more people are drawn. And I love the idea of not necessarily communal living, but the idea of community through common. You know, we can get together here and we can love on each other and we can share and we can cry and we can laugh. And people need that more than they think. A lot of people, when they hear about Reverence or Sacred Circle, are like, well, I don't want any of that juju stuff. And then they come and they say, I had no idea this is what I was missing in my life until I just pushed through and showed up.
Yeah.
And then once they have that connection, that's a lot of what I think is like loving connection. You know, loving connection grows. It can't die. It grows and grows and grows. And of course, it might So people might fall off, people might fall out, people might move away, but the loving connection itself continues to grow, even if it's just between me and Chris, and we get closer, 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 closer. That loving connection spreads from us as we walk in our lives.
I
Yeah.
love, because I think like it's actually just, it's so simple. We're just creating spaces for people to come and connect and not have to have a filter on and have the masks and wear all of the things that we're supposed to wear and be all of these identities that the world tells us to be. Circle is a space where you can just show up and just be you. Community is a space where you can just show up and be seen in all that you are. I like to say, you know, your light, your dark, your beauty, and your mess. Like all of you is welcome in the community spaces. And I think that's a thing that as humans we're missing. You know, as I mentioned earlier, like thousands of years ago, this was a way of life. Like we were living together, we were working in community, we were, you know, our elders were dropping wisdom, we were sitting at their feet, we were helping raise each other's children. You know, all of the food was local because we were all doing it together. And I literally get chills as I say this. And over time, we've just been pulled so far away into our own individual silos. And so then when we're going through the heaviness that it can be to be a human, you know, be a soul in this human experience, it can feel hard, it can feel heavy. But to have spaces where you can look around and share and someone be like, I see you, or like, oh yeah, me too. It is that exhale, and you get to have a little more grace with yourself and with others. And that does continue to grow because ultimately that's what we want. We want to be seen as humans. I think we want to belong, we want to be held. And it allows us to put ourselves, I think, in a deeper way as well. Because we're reminded of our worth. Like I love that you mentioned earlier that kind of when you're in community, the ripple effect that, you know, people will have breakthroughs in their jobs or in relationships. It's not just, oh, I'm surrounded by loving community. It shifts you inside, and then in aspects of your life, it's impacted. So it's been really beautiful to see, you know, for example, women that have come to Circle and maybe we're really scared to start a business, and then they do, and then I'm like watching them thrive. So I think it's a really cool opportunity. I get to be a cheerleader for like so many incredible women, and I think that Circle in these spaces that that we have the honor to be able to kind of, you know, facilitate and hold. But you know, there's no hierarchy, right? The Circle's because you're all looking at each other. So though we're maybe the movers and shakers when it comes to picking a date, a time, and location, and maybe a theme, it's everyone that's in that space, and it's everyone co-creating together. And it's really simple. It is. It's all about love.
Yeah, and it's true. You get what you get out what you put in, right? I mean, that's true with anything. We're seeing the reflection in life, you know, as we're co-creating with each other. But if we show up with, you know, our walls up, then we're not gonna get all the deep, rewarding, rich, fulfilling experiences out of it that we could. Now, if that's the best we can do, then obviously, you know, it'll take some time to, like, you know, get some walls lowered and get the healing, you know, taking place to feel safe to share and safe to connect. You know, because life can be pretty hard out there for some people. But I love how you've cultivated this safe environment, you know, no matter what you're bringing to the table. You know, first of all, I've heard you say, well, I'm not a therapist, this isn't therapy. And that's a very important point to make in today's age where, you know, therapy is a very hot topic. Mental health is a hot topic. So it's not a replacement for therapy, but yet this is like the natural state of being that we should already be in. We should already have our communities. We should already have our support systems. And some people don't, you know, based on, you know, where you grew up and, you know, kind of like the environmental factors or just, you know, how the culture has drifted, programming and things like that. So I kind of rambled off. I don't know where I was going with that topic.
I like what you said though, Leah. I feel like sometimes lack of community may make it for some people a lot deeper that maybe are trying to get through mental health stuff, but that community piece is sometimes that missing piece that, yeah, maybe you do have a medication that's helping you, and that's fine, whichever way you go, or maybe you're doing the therapy, but maybe you're missing that community piece, and that's sometimes a piece that I think really is not recognized a lot, or sometimes missed on. So
It's just nice to feel like when we do have a battle that you're not necessarily having to hold it all on your own all of the time.
Yeah.
Circling in community spaces, like it's almost like when you have the energy to hold it, then you hold it and you hold that space and you beam that love to others. And sometimes you just don't have it, and you can kind of show up and be like, I just don't have it today. And then others can hold that for you, right? I think if we were meant to have this human experience all alone in our silos, we would be the only, like, it would be me here on the planet by myself, and I'm not. And so I think that in our society, and especially as you mentioned, like looking down at the phones, we're so pulled away from like human interaction. And that's what this is all about, really. And I think why we're so passionate about it, it's like bringing people back together to just exist, right? And just to get to look each other in the eyes and have real conversations. And it doesn't necessarily always have to be like-minded. You can come from all different backgrounds and lived experiences, and that just adds more flavor to the conversations, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I love that too. There's people who are, a lot younger, like in their 20s, and there's people who are older. I would say over 60. I don't know people's ages. I don't guess them. But I do gravitate towards older people because they remember what it's like to have a house phone. They remember what it's like to not be glued to a device, to, not have any other distractions at the dinner table. Those are things that I value from, my upbringing, and things that I would instill, in my family if I had one. That it's very important to, since devices are everywhere, just carve out that time to create community with your family, to create community with yourself, like have meditation time, have unplugged time. I took the day off last week, and I told my friend, I was like, I'm unplugged all day. And I guess he didn't realize what that meant. I was just like, hey, I'll talk to you later about that. And he was like, oh, okay, you're not going to be texting. Like, I've done silent retreats before. So, I'm all about, like, if I'm unplugging, I'm unplugging. I'm not going to answer my phone, not going to text anyone. I'm not going to check any social media. I am just off the grid. So it's very important to feel what it feels like to be a human, like having a device is not human. Like, that's not organic. It's natural. It's unnatural. It's nice to have. And I love it because y'all have created your groups and spread awareness through the technology. So it is a gift. And it is an aid, but we have to, we have the power to choose what we're doing with our time, and how we're filling our lives with the experiences. And I think that's another great thing that your communities do is just offer, a variety of experiences that pull people together, that pull people inward, just cultivating that growth.
Yeah, and I think the technology, as you mentioned, it can be a gift, so it's both and, right? So we love being in person and having that real, eye contact. And also it's a real blessing to be able to, we were talking before we even hopped on the podcast, like virtual circles are a thing. I facilitated them, they've been in them. You can gather in sacred spaces with people all over the world. Like, that's mind blowing to think about. You can listen to someone speak that's in a completely different country. We're able to connect here, even though we're in the Grand Strand, we're able to have this conversation from different, homes right now. And so I think it's utilizing the tools in a way that can cause connection when so many are trying to use these tools for distraction and separation and really pulling people away from that connection.
Absolutely.
I use that analogy a lot too. Like, I don't take my cordless drill to bed with me, even though it's a tool that I use for everything in life. Why do I feel like this other tool I use needs to go to bed with me? It needs to go to dinner with me. It needs to go, all these places. And yeah, for emergencies, that's beautiful. And don't get me wrong, I suffer from Facebook is a bigger priority than writing, because I know that it is, because that's what I spend my time doing instead of spending my time doing something else. Instead of writing, which I would love to say is a priority, it's obviously not a priority, because I've got a half hour or 45 minutes that I spend on Facebook today, or any other type of social media or anything else. I know where my priorities lie because I know which tool is in my hand.
Yeah.
And it's not a pen, it's a phone. And yes, beautiful things come from my phone. Every event I've ever thrown has been thrown through my phone. But when it comes to what's becoming most important in my life, also have to look at that in a way. Is this building me up or hurting? You know, and lately I've, pulled away a little bit and tried to put my time in either more circles or more spaces or just more reading. My 9-year-old asked me, right, Dad, do you like to read? And I said, I love accepting the knowledge in every single book I have. But actually, I dislike reading. I would much rather somebody else read them to me. And she was like, really? I like that more too. And I was like, yeah, see, so I'm going to read them all, but I'm not going to like it while I do it. I'm just going to like what's on the other side of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you might benefit from listening to audiobooks while you clean or something. So you're multitasking,
Done a lot.
but you don't have to read it yourself. You're just hearing it.
At work, sometimes if I'm working alone, I'll just put a book on and listen to a book instead.
Yep, I do that while I'm doing payroll files. Oh man. Let's see, what other questions? Okay, we already kind of talked about what community has done for you. What do you think weakens community? I talk about the dark aspect of it, or maybe the toughest part of community that you might face.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little before, but yeah, I think, and it's probably in so many ways, but personally too, this will resonate. But ego and personal agenda, I think, sometimes gets the best of us in general, for ourselves, but also when it comes to community. And it's, through my own personal journey, I've had to really dive deep into my own ego and really try to understand it. And it's always something you're trying to keep in check, or at least have a good relationship with. So I think when you then start expanding with a whole bunch of other humans, depending on where we're all at different parts of our journey, when it comes to something, we all have to kind of let go of some things to be able to come together and be able to just expand powerfully. And one of the things when we first got together with Reverence that I was really conscious with was probably letting go of my wanting to control or have structure. That's something that really implanted into my life for a while. And as I allowed myself to just flow with our group as we started our meetings, it was like I was able to release from having to have that structure, and it was still something really beautiful. So, and if I didn't, it could potentially have weakened my experience, weakened others because of maybe how I responded. So I think, in general, big thing probably is that ego and personal agenda.
Very true.
Like with the women's circles, we have this other, and maybe men have this too, but I know in the work with women in the spaces I've been in, women also deal with like a sister wound. So I would say like mistrust can kind of weaken. There can be some resistance or hesitance to even show up to the circle. And then if you're there and you're kind of hesitant, so I think it's really important in all of these spaces to really understand the integrity and the safety involved for the spaces to go to the depths that they can and to be the medicine that it truly can be. And so I think that what I've found over time is that when people are really showing up to these spaces from a place of like integrity and really feeling called to be in these spaces from their heart, then it shows and they keep coming. And then sometimes people come and it's one time and maybe it's not the right thing. So then they kind of go their way. But it's interesting. And I think that the way we heal some of that and strengthen communities is by showing up to these spaces, right? So if you have that kind of hesitation, like, oh, I don't know if I want to go be in a space with a bunch of people I don't know, maybe try it. Or maybe it's one conversation during your day. Like if I like to say, like start really small, like bite-sized chunks of trying to do things versus like the big picture. So showing up to a circle space doesn't feel right for you. Maybe it's, can I really make eye contact in a grocery store when someone talks to me instead of just kind of walking by? Like, can I like really connect with the person and know that that conversation is impactful to me because it's happening? It's meant for me because it's happening, right? But I also agree that, egos and the personal agenda, it's wanting to ensure that if you're coming to a community space, that it's for the community. And that's why we sit in circle. As I mentioned earlier, there's no hierarchy. It's about everyone and kind of holding that space together to be a co-creation and something that's so important.
Absolutely.
Me, Me and Chris started a lot of that right at the beginning with, and I know Leah does the same thing with having a different co-facilitator most months. But we decided that Reverence would be hosted by whoever wanted to host it that next 2 week period, to where they ran that Reverence meeting the way they wanted to where in 2 weeks, if you wanted to run it different at your house, you ran it different at your house. Then in 2 weeks, you had a different host and they run it different at their house. And we have had guys say, well, I don't like how you ran it. I'm like, well, that's okay. I agree to disagree. And when you have it at your house, you can have it however you want. But while it's here, this is how I wanted it. You know, and we have roundtable sharing, so everybody is equal, and it kind of really lets people feel a part of, even if they don't end up having it at their house, because they get to try all these different ways of doing it at different people's houses, and it's all generally some form of meditation, spiritual talk, roundtable sharing, and some kind of activity with some food. You know, they're all kind of outlined the same way, but at each one could be totally different. You know, one time we're throwing axes talking about hitting your goals because your priorities are off. And the next time we're doing a cold plunge and talking about how brave are you? Are you willing to surrender and shed fear? You know, so everyone is totally different, but everybody gets a chance to share what they wanted. That's beautiful.
I love that.
Awesome.
Each person here on this planet is so unique, and we each have our own medicine, and it's truly just ours to share with the world, right? And so I think, you know, the circles that I do aren't at people's homes, so it's on the beach, but what I felt was really important was every month to bring someone else in, because there's so many incredible people in the Grand Strand. Like, I didn't want to hold all the spaces. Like, I have medicine to share, but it would be this medicine. So if I can bring in other people that offer something completely different, then one that magnetizes people that, you know, from outside, maybe they're interested in shadow work, or maybe they're interested in, you know, crystals, or they're interested in, you know, their inner child, you know, whatever kind of work they're drawn to. It brings people to the space, and then it's also a way to celebrate the incredible humans that live here. Like, if we're talking about the Grand Strand, like the incredible people that are connected with this community, it blows my mind. Who I'm like surrounded with most of the time. I'm like, I can't even believe this many people exist in this area that are so freaking awesome. And so I love that you guys do that too, that you give this opportunity for others to take that lead. And again, that's why Circle is so important. There's no hierarchy. It's about all of us.
Yeah, and I love what you do. She's doing this again. I love if I don't hold on to her, she'll press buttons on the keyboard. So she's done that before. I'll be like, what did you press? Her name is oh, she's okay, being feisty. All right.
She heard you talking about it.
Yeah, cats. All right.
What I want.
Right.
Oh man, so I love the thing you do with your group, her circle, where you're like, you know, this is the time to promote your business. You know, share one thing that you're giving away, or what's a special offer, because it's really like, you know, it's a generous nod to the people in the group, you know, that you have this platform and you're offering a little bit of a limelight to other people to see, you know, how much talent is in the group, and how we help each other. We survive and thrive by helping each other, you know, and it just kind of takes the whiplash of competition out of the spectrum, because in the universe there's all abundance. There's not competition. There's just purpose. And that's one thing that we have to reprogram ourselves on. You know, we're reading some of the great masters, like I'm doing a book study on Wayne Dyer, The Power of Intention, like just getting really deep in those intentions, and seeing how purposeful your life is when you slow down and see that everything you do matters, and matter and materialize come from the same root word, you know. So it's like, yeah, you know, it does materialize, you know, what I say, what I think, how I uplift someone, how I share someone else's business. There's a ripple effect, as you were saying earlier. We're all connected here, and we're not going to make it if we think we're an island, if we're in the mentality of isolation. You know, we have to support each other and look out for each other. So, yeah, I get off on tangents. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I'm just like, beautiful. Keep going in tangents.
Yeah. Back in the day, I used to teach a lot of seminars and stuff on the law of attraction, and I feel like I'm kind of like I'll tap into that mode again, and I'll be like, oh wait, I'm in a conversation. I'm not on the stage. Oh God. But yeah, this is really awesome. I'm thankful you guys are all here. You know, to me, what creates community, I mean, there's like the emotional aspect, the mental, the spiritual, the physical, and you got to show up. You got to show up for yourself. Number one, you got to show up for other people. And if you don't show up for yourself first, you're putting the cart before the horse. So that's one thing that I learned over the years, is just how to show up better for myself. And it's not a judgment, it's just an awareness, that we get what we expect, and what we're putting out there, and we're constantly improving. It's like having a trajectory, going out into space. They're constantly correcting. They don't really have a direct target. They're constantly correcting their projection into space to get to where they're going. And that's just, what life is in general. Just, adjusting as we go along, and, shooting towards that target.
Yeah, practice makes better. You don't make 180-degree turn in your life. You make 3-degree turns that take you 180 degrees. And that's kind of what I try to practice, especially with some of the guys that I work with. I do a lot of shadow work with people. And that's what it's always based on. It's 3-degree turns. Don't try to be everything you want to be tomorrow. Be a little bit better tomorrow. And as you practice becoming a little bit better, you end up becoming the best person you could ever imagine being, because you practice it second by second, day by day, forever. And as it's better, you get better. And then as you get better, you share that with others, and all of a sudden the world changes. And a lot of the things with the kirtans here at the house, it's like, bring your kids. The more kids that are here, the more we get an opportunity to change the world. In 20 years, there'll be 150 kids from Myrtle Beach area all doing kirtans, all doing cacao ceremonies, all doing sound healing baths together. It's going to continue to grow and spread because of the little sparks along the way. And all of a sudden, there's a forest fire, and it's a forest fire of love and beauty.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love that. Forest fire of love and beauty. I'm here for that. And I feel like I have to share that here soon. There's actually going to be children's circles that are starting. Their our friend Caroline just started teen circles at her space, the Centered Soul, which I think is so important. And then my friend Rocky is about to start children's circles, and so we're going to be getting together in April, and there's going to be like a circle happening for adults while simultaneously the children are gathering. And it's just so incredible to think what a world could look like if you're just born and circle is just something that you see, and community is just something norm, right? Like, how would we be interacting? How would we be making decisions? Would we be looking out for our neighbors? I know some people live on a street and don't know their neighbors at all. I just feel like we would interact with the world in a different way. And it's really exciting to see that that's kind of things that are being birthed now. And I appreciate you letting us bring our kids, all of our kids, to your song. And now my daughter's chanting all the time at the house, which I love. So it's fun. And she's two.
That is so awesome.
Chanting at the house.
They are.
I'm so glad to hear about the kids, because the imprinting is really important. So what you imprint on them and their environment, especially ages 7 and under, but definitely teens as well, that becomes their expectation in adulthood. That becomes what they expect as normal. So, it's really important to use that psychology to, create a new reality, to create a new positive expectation in society. And see that ripple effect go. That's super awesome. Somebody mentioned in our group tonight that in the 70s, homelessness was at 40%, and now it's at 6%. but what's spoken about on the news is mainly just drama and trauma, so we hear the explosions of things happening, but we don't often see the progression that happens over the course of 30 to 40 years and the improvements that have been taking place. So it's important to gather that perspective of, where have things been and how are they improving, and what's my thumbprint on it? What's my impact? What am I contributing in a positive way? Because there's a lot of news out there that's not the greatest, but as it's been said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Like you see a problem, see an issue, you see a void to fill. What can I do to contribute? What can I do to enjoy my life and spread some positivity around?
I love that. My 12-year-old and I actually, it was either today or yesterday, we're having a conversation. She was kind of talking to me about how the world can just seem like there's so much suffering, right? And so I guess when she was scrolling on something, it was just like being bombarded with what we're bombarded with, and how much suffering. And so I shared with her, I'm a big fan of Mr. Rogers. And so he had a quote where it was like, look for the helpers. And so I was explaining to her, like, even when there's like destruction and like a tornado that destroys a city, like watch how the neighbors all come together. Like, it's in those moments where it's really your perspective on things. And so I really like to look at that if we focus on all of the suffering that is happening on our planet and the horrible tragedies that are happening even very recently, there's so much happening that can feel very heavy on our heart. But if we have these community spaces with so many of the helpers, right, coming together from that heart-led place, and we can hold each other through that, then the world feels a little less heavy. And that ripple effect that you talk about is what will impact. And then hopefully 20, 30, 40 years, that perspective has shifted for a lot of people, and they're looking for the helpers versus staring at the suffering and feeling the overwhelm of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, that's one of the things I noticed about the Grand Strand when I moved here is the sense of community already here, probably because y'all have storms or we have storms like ever so often. It's not like living in another area where you might have a storm, I'm talking about a major storm. You might have a major storm once every 10 years. Around here, close to the coast, it might be a little more frequent. So how fast people jump in to help each other, like young kids helping their elders, people they don't know, getting debris off their lawns, just the little things that can take a very short amount of time for a younger person to do. It speaks volumes. And I think that's why one of the reasons why your communities are thriving so well, because that community's kind of inbred and in the culture here. If there were any kind of needs that you had, would you do you have needs? Is there a takeaway from our gathering today that you wish to spread at this point?
Oh no, maybe more open-mindedness. I think I've never thought about needing more, but I think that's the thing that interjects with circle community and even reverence is a lot of people are closed-minded to some of the things we're talking about because of maybe indoctrination or hard beliefs. I know I watched a movie some 20 years ago where at the end of it she said, I choose, and she had already met God in the movie and everything. She said, I choose not to have a belief anymore. I just have an idea. And the reason I don't hold on to that belief is because it's too hard to go through. She didn't say it like that, but she said it's too hard to go through cognitive dissonance to change your mind.
Yeah.
If you believe in something wholeheartedly, then you can't change your mind. It's actually painful. And if you just have an idea and that idea spreads, so more open-mindedness is the thing I would say, and shedding of the ego, which humanity as a whole is going to be working on that for 1,000 years. But
yeah,
together with community and coming together, I always say, if you want to change the world, go outside and love your neighbor. And no matter what the question is, the answer is love. And my daughter's 22 now, but when she was 15, I would say that to her twice a day. And she'd be like, well, can I go stay at Katrina's house or not? And I was like, the answer is love. Are you going for a loving reason or are you going to drink and party and hook up with boys? And she's like, to just be with my friend. And I said, of course you can go then. And that's what all of my answers are based on. No matter what the question is, the answer is love. And she got really, really irritated by it as a teenager. And now that she's 22, she's in every circle with me whenever it's an open circle. She loves to be in community because she was raised different than the way that I was raised, and it took a lot of breaking the cycle to get to this point. It took a lot of shutting off the news and shutting off past beliefs and really shedding the ego inside of myself, because I was full of ego for so long, so narcissistic and confused about what was most important in life. I was seeking instant gratification, not realizing until 20 years later that all it brought me was suffering. That delayed gratification and service to others is what brings joy. And joy is the feeling we're looking for. Joy and love, peace, serenity, all those things come from service and serving others. And that's what I seek today. I don't seek instant gratification. Don't get me wrong, I still like drinking a Red Bull first thing in the morning because it makes me feel wonderful. But I don't seek just instant gratification in daily life. I seek service to others. And that's what really, it feels better than anything's ever felt before in my life. So more open-mindedness and more ideas instead of beliefs. It's tough to shed some of that stuff, but it feels so good. Got statues of basically every god from every religion all over my house and yard, because many rivers, one ocean,
Yeah.
drops of rain, one puddle. And that's how I want to live life, because I want everybody to feel loved. And I want everybody to feel loved.
That's what came up for me too, is that you said, what do we need, or what do we wish people knew? Is I wish people understood, for the women's circles that I do, that it's not about a particular belief system, that anyone is welcome. I have people come that are Christian. I have people that come that have eclectic beliefs. I have people that come that are Buddhist. There's people that, are just nature lovers. And then that's where they find their, their connection to that which cannot be named. Right. I wish people understood that these spaces that we're holding aren't about a particular belief system. It's truly about love. It's truly about community, and it's truly about connection. And it really is actually as simple as that. Just as Hance said, everyone is welcome.
Awesome.
And I'll add to that just little sprinkles on top of really positivity and gratitude. And I think it's something that resonates with me a lot. I had a very one of the most positive moments you could ever imagine, at least in my eyes. And I'm grateful for that, because I've been able to expand that understanding in my life, but also try to recognize and teach that with my daughters. And when I come back from school, and I think this also explains us as adults, we are focusing on the negative first, and we give that energy so easily, but why is it so hard for us to give positive energy the same ease, the same effortless energy that we give to the negative stuff? And it's just retraining our mind, retraining our consciousness. And with my daughter, I try to ask her what's the best thing that happened. My oldest coming out of first grade, what's the best thing to happen in your day? And she mainly wants to tell me about the worst. Mm-hmm. And I think that expands into us as adults. And sometimes when you see circles like us and we just live naturally together, connected, when we come out into all kinds of circles that we do, I think some people are so stuck into, again, their beliefs, their negativity, some of these different things. They look at us. It's funny. I see some people that make these faces when we're in our circles and things, and it's like they cannot understand that abundance of love and community. And really, they come up and talk to us, and we welcome them in and invite them back in all kinds of spaces. So I really love the openness and love and all the things that they share. And I think you just add it just as simple as just remember to have that positive energy no matter what. When it comes to your social media activity, be positive. I try to not post anything unless it can leave a positive impact on somebody else. So it allows me to not really share much of news and things like that. But I would just say, let's continue to search more for that positivity, on top of that openness and love that we're talking about.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate y'all taking the time out to chat with me about community. If anyone is interested, this is Reverence, the men's group, and her circle, the women's group, for Sacred Circles. You also train women to open up their own circles, right?
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in bringing a circle to their area, they can reach out, for support and guidance, and I have a program that they can move through. And I think the ultimate goal is like we were talking about, if everyone could just sit in circle, right? So from the children to the elders, like that's the ultimate goal.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm loving all the growth that's happening. Love to hear that the kids are having their own groups coming up. And I can't wait to see what else comes from this. So I've just, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do and leading by example. And just excited to see everything else to come.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, y'all take care and I will see you around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.